Get started here. Thank you all for joining us for another Bytespeed Esports webinar. And for those of you who are watching this after the fact on our YouTube channel, hi, thanks for being here as well. Just want to make a real quick housekeeping announcement, just a couple of things. If at any point during the webinar today, you guys have questions or want to kind of dive deeper into something, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A function. I've got them both up and working. And we'll, take questions that way. So please just type those out. If you're on the YouTube page and you have questions that you'd like follow-ups on, please drop them in the comments below. We'll be watching those and try and get in touch with you after the fact. So please, feel free to ask questions. Let's dive into, the topics a little bit more if you want to. Otherwise, we'll kind of go from the 5,000 foot view on some film and analytics stuff. The other housekeeping and the reason why you're all here is for the big Lego set giveaway. We'll announce those two winners at the end of this webinar. Those of you that are joining today and were there last week for the other one, you have another chance added to the pool to win the big Minecraft Lego set. So that's enough from me rambling. Let me share my screen here and we'll get started. So I would like to do this and then, yeah, we'll do this guy. Sure. All right. You guys should all be able to see my screen now. If not, please let me know in the chat, but I think we're rocking and rolling. Today's webinar topic is going to be on using film study and analytics for esports to help with scouting and review. This is a topic that we ran when we did the esports ed webinars a couple of years ago. So some of the content here is from 2020, but the premises are still the same. The walkthrough and the kind of the process will all be super relevant for what you're doing right now with your teams. Either this spring or if you're getting started this fall, this is a great way to kind of go about the process of using film and analytics. So just a quick introduction. My name is Josh Knutson. I'm the Esports and VR Solutions Director for Bytespeed. We're an IT solutions manufacturer based in Moorhead, Minnesota. We've been building computers for 23 years now, and esports has been a big part of our journey over the last 5 or 6 years. Coincidentally, that's kind of when my esports journey started. I'm a former esports head coach and program director. I got my start in 2016 at the University of Jamestown up in North Dakota. So if you hear the long O's in the Norwegian accent, that's why. I'm also a NACAD advisory board member, and NACAD is the National Association of Esports Coaches and Directors. It is a super valuable organization that hosts coaching clinics, has online professional development, is a great network of other high school and college coaches from around the country and Canada. And is just a fantastic organization to get involved with if you're starting out or you're a seasoned coach. There's a lot of great resources and a super valuable organization to be involved with. My contact info is also here on the screen. Please feel free to reach out if we don't get to your questions or if you want to talk more in kind of a one-on-one setting. I've got both my phone numbers up there, call, text, whatever works for you. Shoot me an email, connect with me on social media. I would love to know where you guys are at in your esports journey and help in any way I can. So that's enough about me. Everybody's seen, or I hope the baseball fan in me hopes that everybody has seen the movie Moneyball, the great movie from a few years back about how the Oakland Athletics, who had a extremely small pay gap compared to some of the other teams in Major League Baseball, used stats and analytics to build a playoff winning team when everybody thought that they were just going to be another team in the dumpster at the end of the season. And there's a great story and a great movie that kind of goes through that process. And I kind of equate what we're going to talk about today to kind of esports Moneyball. Using the data and the resources that are out there, and a ton of it is free, to be able to pull together scouting reports and draft strategies, look at opponents, players, evaluate things from a lot of different angles. And I think it's a really cool example of how, using math, which I'm not a math guy, I'm not a stats guy. But when it comes to scouting, one of the biggest things that was a success point for Jamestown when I was coaching was using analytics as much as possible to be able to find an edge, when we might not have had that, that championship level team. My program at Jamestown was built very much like the Oakland Athletics at the time of Moneyball. So let's kind of look at an overview of the numbers stuff first, and then we'll dive into some video and VOD review at the end of it. But really, using stats and analytics to find patterns is going to be like your biggest benefit to putting in this work. So, analytics, there's a ton of different stat tracking websites out there for a number of esports titles. The big ones, op.gg, u.gg, those are two of the most well-known websites out there in the community. op.gg is what we'll kind of use as a frame of reference for today's example. But if you can think of a competitive esports title out there, there's a website tracking professional data, regular player data. It just, you might have to look a little bit for it. Tracker Network is one that I found just this morning, and kind of looking to try and find some like Rocket League examples, or something that's a little bit more relevant for the K-12 audience. Not everybody plays League of Legends, but I did find that Tracker Network had a bunch of games listed, and Rocket League, I did find some good stats there. I just searched my profile and found, how many or how few wins I have. But kind of just circling back, there's a stat website out there for almost every game, and some of the common ones are listed here. And the big thing that these websites do is track individual stats and results from games that are played online against, the normal ladder of games, not necessarily tracking like custom games or, stuff where you're creating the lobby and doing everything yourself. This would be like tracking ladder. A lot of times it's solo queue or like a mixed queue system. So it's not a perfect representation of what a player's ability looks like and what you'll see kind of in a competitive tournament, but it gives you a really good idea of what they're playing the most, and what their kind of tendencies and things to look out for are. So diving in, I have an example. And again, I pulled all of this information back in 2020, when the League of Legends collegiate season was going on. So that's kind of the example scenario that we'll go through on the stat side of things. Again, I know not everybody plays League of Legends, and not everybody will be able to take this one-to-one example, but I hope that the process that we go through will show you how to, when you are scouting and when you are developing kind of your reports and things, that you can kind of take this process and follow the steps and be able to build out, no matter what game you're playing. So this example scenario, St. John's University, who's the #1 seed in the Big East, is heading into the conference championship against #2 DePaul. Again, this is back a couple of years ago, so the meta is going to be very different than what's being played now. But at the time, this was a really good snapshot of where things were at. So BattleFi houses the Collegiate League of Legends Championship. That's the tournament platform that they use. All of the brackets, stats, participants, overview, all that stuff is housed in BattleFi. And one of the things that you can find through going, and looking up your opponent, let's say, pretend we're St. John's in this example. I'm going to look for DePaul's roster, and I'm going to find, who's their top, mid, support, jungle, bottom, and oh, awesome, they have a substitute listed. So I can also scout that player. We can look at the members of their roster and then go through match history and lineup history to be able to say, okay, what are these players playing in the tournament? And then also using a site like op.gg to find what they play in solo queue and what they're practicing and primarily playing. So that's exactly what I did. I found DePaul's roster, acting like I was St. John's and I was going through and scouting. and we pulled up their op.gg for all of their players. If you've never used op.gg, this is kind of what it will spit out when you type in a username. It's going to give you data on win percentage for the last 10 solo queue games, their preferred position, what their current rank is. And then you can also go, this was season 10 at the time we took this, but you could also go back to 9, the past seasons and also get data from those. And again, also up on top here, you can see their rank, right now in season 10, use diamond, but in season 9, also diamond, season 8, also diamond, 7 diamond, 6 platinum, and 5 silver. So we can kind of get a player history based on just, their solo queue, ranked ladder games to be able to start building a profile of what we think these players might do in a tournament game. So a couple of other key highlights here, and I have let's see, the ADC for DePaul kind of highlighted here. So King Amazing right now we see is a Diamond 1 ranked player. ADC is his position. We can see in season 9 last year, last season, they were at Grandmaster rank. So actually the Diamond rank is not the full potential for this player. And that's something that you'll want to look for in kind of looking at past seasons and kind of a long period of time with like, okay, the mid lane for DePaul, Kamcha, has been diamond for 4 seasons now. That's probably a good indication of where their skill level is in the real world, right? Whereas King Amazing, we see Grandmaster last season, diamond now, probably has a little bit of climbing left to do, and is, one of the players that if we look at the other members of the team, we see diamond, platinum in a couple of seasons ago, gold in a couple of seasons ago. This is probably their carry, their ADC player, probably is the team captain or like one of the players that's at the top of their roster as far as skill is concerned. So along with the data that gets pulled by pulling in their username, we can look at the champions that they've played most. So at this point in the season, King Amazing, their ADC, has played Kaisa and Misfortune the most, 10 games and 6 games respectively, which isn't a huge sample size, but it gives us the start of an idea of, compared to everything else they're playing, 2 Sivir, 3 Lucian, not a ton. These are most likely what this player is going to use in their game. And we can also see, pointed out here, this player has a 90% win rate on Kaisa, on one particular carry or one particular character. So 9 out of 10 games that they've played this character, they've won. So that's something to kind of think in the back of your head. Okay, this is definitely something that we need to pay attention to. Also, KD ratios are also listed. You can dive deeper into each player's profile, but this gives you kind of like that first look at what DePaul's roster would look like from, that high level look. So we've got, all of their different players. We can also see that, their substitute Alpha Katie is also an ADC. And is probably, not somebody that would get swapped in necessarily in a game, but we can also say, okay, King Amazing's probably their starter for ADC, and that's probably why, Alpha Katie is their substitute. They play the same position, and skill level on, this player versus this player. We can start to see why, or if there are substitute changes that happen, this is the position that we know is going to be the sub. So taking that player data, the next thing that we would look for is pulling results from the season to be able to build a full, kind of more full scouting profile. So again, kind of thinking that we're St. John's, I went through onto Battlefy and I pulled DePaul's match history. So I went through the entire season, all 7 games leading up to this championship match, and I was able to look for those commonalities. And this is all that, film review, analytics, all this boils down to is finding patterns and then building strategies to either exploit or fix those patterns. So for us thinking that we're St. John's, we want to look for, again, those commonalities. And we see that Set has been played in the top lane, not 6 of 7 times. So, not saying that it's a guaranteed thing that when DePaul and St. John's end up playing their game, that this top laner is going to pick Set. But at that time, 6 out of 7 games is a pretty big indicator that that's a comfort pick for him. That's something that, again, we can either choose in a game like League of Legends to either ban away straight up or build a strategy around because we think it's going to get drafted. If we look back, remembering that King Amazin, their ADC, has played the most games in season 10 on Kaisa, has that super high win rate. In the competitive setting, in the competitive setting for this season, in the games that counted in the match throughout the tournament, outside of solo queue, he's actually only played Kaisa 3 out of 7 games. But again, he's got that 90% solo queue win rate. So it's still a threat that, it might not be as a for sure thing as the set example for the top lane, but it might be a position that we want to key in a ban and say, you know what? Teams have probably banned Kaisa away because of this high win rate and because that's, what this ADC plays the most. And maybe it's only slipped through 3 times, or maybe they first picked it when they were picking first. But maybe, other teams have caught on to that strategy of, hey, we want to ban this away because of the win percentage. And we can see, in the game, in these 2 victories for DePaul, he actually didn't play the Kaisa. And in the 1 defeat against St. John's, ironically, he was actually on Kaisa. The mid lane, again, also kind of looking for patterns, has played Azir 3 times. That is also something where, didn't play it in the previous game against St. John's, but it played it in the other 2 games that I have screenshotted, and is something that, hey, seems like it might be a comfort pick in this really high competitive setting. Maybe that's something that we also look at for a pick ban or just an overall game strategy. And that's, again, all you kind of want to do is look for the results, either in the statistics for op.gg in the solo queue setting, when you're kind of going back to the players and the positions that you're most comfortable in, using the game data and looking at the big picture, but then also diving down into, this game where, DePaul played Villanova. We can actually get even more idea of what happened during that game from the results of that individual game. So looking at the semifinal game where DePaul beat Villanova to make it to the championship, we can see that it was almost a 30-minute game. So that gives you an idea of how many objectives have happened in the game of League of Legends at that time, knowing that every X minutes, we have a dragon spawn, or we have, Baron Nashor comes in at this specific time throughout the game. We know, what the objectives look like, what state the game was in, if it was early game, mid game, late game, and we can see the score. So, 21 kills, 13 assists, 41, and be able to look from a top level perspective of all of the data from this game. So again, DePaul, their set lane, we can see what items, what abilities he used, how much damage he did compared to the rest of the team. And then be able to see, okay, his actual, KDA. So 5 kills, 1 death, 5 assists, and actually go through and start to see patterns. Again, looking at this game, trying to grab stats from the game before, trying to, if we were actually building out like a really fully comprehensive scouting report for this championship game, we would want these stats and this data from every game that season to be able to say, okay, King Amazin, their ADC, 43% of the team's damage. They're funneling their strategy through getting an ADC fed and having him be a major player in the offense and what they're thinking. And then looking, okay, the Azir got played, that mid lane that has also been played 3 times out of 7 this season. What is he building towards item wise? What was his role in the overall scheme of the game? So definitely things to look out for and see, especially in a game like League of Legends, where there is, certain positions are going to use, items and abilities most of the time. Not every game is like that. You could be swapping things pretty consistently, but typically, everybody's going to run flash. That's something that's just kind of a foregone conclusion. Depends on the meta, obviously, too. But we can start to say, okay, the items and abilities that these players are using, if it tracks across the season, we can kind of get an idea of what they'll try and do during our game against them. On the Villanova side, again, just kind of the flip stats from the overall perspective. And then we can kind of say, okay, where did we fall short if we're Villanova against this team? Well, maybe it was the fact that our ADC, who was going up against the DePaul ADC, did not do very well. Just 1, 4, and 8 for an overall stat line, 22% of our team's damage. If we want to be a higher producing member of our team, part of that strategy, we can start to say, okay, this is maybe where the wheels fell off. So then, kind of taking everything that we've looked at, we can kind of see those patterns. Like I said, set has been played 6 of 7 times. We can see some stats, some items, the abilities that he's been using, the runes he's been using. Let's build a strategy around letting that get picked and then countering it really, really hard. This is, definitely a strategy that can be used in any game that has kind of a pick ban system. If you know what to expect and you're ready for it, why not let it through? If you're not super scared of it, and maybe we're gonna, instead of, maybe this guy can't play anything besides set, or maybe that's just his super big comfortable pick. But maybe we want to ban away the Kaisa from the ADC, who we know is the best player on the team, has the highest output as far as damage and just overall role in the outcome of the game. Maybe we ban that away and let the set get through and build our strategy around that. So we can look at, okay, at that time, again, this is from 2 years ago, so the meta is a little different, but what counters this character that we know is going to get let through? We can start to build, a strategy around using these characters. And then maybe because we're going to let set through, we're going to ban away the things that he's strong working with. So not letting them have the Kaisa, banning away that ADC that we know is the key, the big time player for them. And then also banning away things like a Bard or a Misfortune, where they work really well together with this character that we know we're going to face. So kind of taking the data from not only the picks that this team has had before, but also using the data from, stats from the games, from the entire season, looking for those patterns, we can build a pretty good strategy and then have to put that into play in practice and be able to come up with kind of the back half of, building out a strategy for this game. So I hope that made sense. I know it's a lot of kind of high level stuff and it's a little bit older of an example, but I hope that kind of shows you, especially for a game like League of Legends or Smite or anything that has a pick ban system, this is a really good way to go about, finding weaknesses or things that we can count on that we can either use to our advantage or, just not let the other team have before the game even starts. So moving into VOD review, and again, this is kind of like that 10,000 foot view, right? Why do we do them in the first place? The same reason why, basketball and football and volleyball all look at their game film, to find what we did right, what we did wrong, what can we improve on, where did the wheels fall off in this game that we might have lost. Esports is no different. A lot of games nowadays have built-in replay functions or, again, things where we can find that recording of our game and watch it back and be able to find strategies that didn't work and maybe alter them for practice this week or a game plan in the future. Or maybe it's something that we did really, really well. And we want to sit down with our team and really enforce those good behaviors, say, this was really a strong point in our game plan. It worked in this example. Let's carry that into our next game or further down the season. So it's super important just from a reflection standpoint, being able to say, these are the good or the bad things that we can do. But even more than that, this is a great way to get students involved and actually have them learn and grow as players. Definitely there is a I don't want to say a clear line, but you're going to have players that are into esports for more of a casual setting, and then you're going to have players that want to improve and play at the high competitive level, right? VOD reviews are valuable for both styles of players, but it might skew a little bit more towards those high achieving or highly competitive students that you might have on your roster. But doing VOD reviews is a great way to help them, again, have more ownership in their program, in the process of getting better. When I was a coach, we used to sit down and actually have everybody on the team, if it was like my Overwatch team, for example, we could sit down, pull up the VOD review of the previous night's game or scrimmage or practice, whatever it might be. And I would actually just like play the video of the game and have my students lead the VOD review and actually have them point out the mistakes that they made. Or, like I said, those good things that we did. And that's, definitely an area where the coach or program director, you could be the one leading that VOD review session and leading the conversation, but having your students be an active participant in that is a great way to get them engaged more, or have, extra players or extra students involved in that process. There are a lot of teams where, using Overwatch as an example, you might have, you're starting 6 players, but you could have, 2 or 3 students as analysts in your program where they're not necessarily playing, but it's their job to dive into the videos and be able to pick out those key moments to talk about in VOD review, and be kind of the behind the scenes assistant coaches or really big support roles in your program. And this is a great way to get them involved. So that's kind of a background on why we do them in the first place. And there's a couple of different tools and ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, we're capturing game film and we want to watch it back and comment on how we did. And then finding those lessons, to be learned, again, kind of what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better? And there's, definitely a lot of different ways to do that. So as far as tools are concerned and how, the nuts and bolts of actually going about doing a film review, there's kind of a good free way to do it and a good introductory way to do it. And then there's obviously some paid tools that are not super expensive. We're talking $5-20 a month, somewhere in that range, depending on the amount of storage and functionality that you want to be able to do. But you can absolutely do this for free, and it's something that you can do tomorrow with your program. On the free side, all you need really is a way to record your screen. And you can either do that through, software like OBS, the Microsoft Game Bar, just finding a way to capture what's going on your screen and also capturing the audio. That is the biggest difference between, something like League of Legends, again, has that built-in replay tool where you could go back and you can find a game and pull it up and it'll go through and it'll follow all the action. But that's just going to show you game audio, and you won't actually be able to hear like the Discord comms of your players. And that, I think, is what separates like mediocre or kind of like handicapped as far as like not having all the tools there film review as to like a full functioning one. If you have the audio, it kind of gives you almost sometimes more important information than just watching what's happening on screen. With the audio of your players' communication, you can build context around what's happening. Whereas like, you might see somebody, get scored on in Rocket League, as an example, and you might be able to say, okay, just watching the game film, hey, we were out of position, or, there wasn't somebody here, so they scored, and making that very like surface level interpretation of what's happening on screen. But if you have the audio and you're hearing the comms and saying, hey, I didn't have that touch, or I'm not back yet, out of boost, whatever it might be, you can build a little bit more context around why something happened. So using OBS or the Game Bar or something like that to capture both what's happening on screen and what's happening over comms is super important to build out the right recording that you want to use for your VOD review. then we needed a way to access that content. When I was coaching, I just downloaded or uploaded, I guess, all of our recordings that I did actually with the Microsoft Game Bar. I just, hit record on the screen, and at the end of the game, I stopped the recording and it created a video file that I uploaded to a YouTube channel and had as an unlisted video. So, only me or the people that I gave a link to could access that video and see it and watch it. And that way, other teams couldn't scout me or couldn't have access to a VOD review that we were, hadn't done yet or something like that. A little bit more intimate as far as like what we wanted on screen. And that's why I put it on a YouTube channel after the fact. Certainly other schools could pull up our Twitch channel, but they might not have the audio comms that we do because they could hear shoutcasters or something like that. So it's kind of saving that piece of it for our players and not necessarily our opponents next week. And then, sharing comments and being able to say, okay, at this timestamp, if we're doing this asynchronously, maybe it's, I upload the video and I want to put my comments in right away when it's fresh, but the rest of my players are going to be watching it either throughout the week, and we're going to have a film session on Friday. If we're doing it asynchronously and we wanted to share our comments and put timestamps in, you can honestly just start like a Google Drive or a OneDrive with, a document in there and be able to say, okay, it's a shared document between me and my players. As you watch this game, in that shared document, write the timestamp, write your comment, and we'll pull that up when we do the VOD review. And then, if you have notations or you want to talk about specific positioning or things like that, take a screenshot, use something like Epic Pen or, any drawing tool that you can draw circles or shapes or notation on a screenshot, be able to upload that also to that shared drive where we could access that content later. So that's kind of like the free introductory kind of cobbled together option that is 100% viable. It's actually what I did as a coach. But there are some pretty cool tools out there. Insights GG being one of them that has been super recommended by a couple of my close friends that are still coaching as a platform to kind of bring all of this stuff under one roof. So insights.gg, and we're going to be using Drury University as an example. My good friend Michael Jones is the coach down there. We both got started around the same time in coaching, and he actually helped me co-present a webinar on film and analytics a couple of years ago. And this was, stuff that he shared with us and is a good example of like what Insights, which is a free platform, what it could do when you kind of have all of these certain tools under one roof. Insights right now, and I just actually created a profile right before the webinar. It's a free profile with storage and kind of other functionality upgrades for like different tiers, right? They have like one that's $5 a month. They have one that's, up to, I think like 25 or something like that. So flexible plans based on what you're trying to do, but you could certainly start for free and jump into something really cool and really useful without having to pay anything. So this is insights.gg. Again, it's just kind of pulling everything under one roof. So you see on screen here, they've got a couple of different Overwatch games, a couple of League of Legends games. And these are all just links to those videos where you could go through and actually use the platform to make those comments and have them time-stamped in a really neat kind of player, for lack of a better word. So Insights is great because you can, Michael on the side here is making comments at 36 seconds. We had something happen. I want to make this something that we talk about in VOD review later. I'm going to put a timestamp here while I'm watching, and you can actually, click this timestamp and it'll skip to that point in the timeline. So this is great. You can also reply to these comments. So if you had players, again, if we're doing this asynchronously, or just kind of, wanting to have a conversation where I might have a kid home, or we might be distance learning, or maybe it's two different sessions. Not everybody can make it to the same one. We can reply to each other and have smaller conversations within, individual timestamp instances. There's a lot of other really cool tools that go along with insights. You can draw on this screen, like having an Epic pen, be able to make notations, and we'll see an example of that in a couple minutes here. But you can put stickers where if like you wanted to say, okay, I was positioned wrong, this is where I should have been. I can pull in maps, not necessarily just League of Legends, but I could have an Overwatch map on screen, and maybe we want to talk about a rotation that didn't go right. So I could put, little markers on this Overwatch map of where my players were, where they ended up, and we can say, okay, the Orisa was, hiding back in this back corner, should have actually been across the courtyard, or something to that effect, right? It's all going to be in context of why you're doing that review. What do you want to work on? What do you want to talk about in that session? Just to give you an example of how this might work, I do have like a really short 3-minute example of Michael walking through using this platform and talking about a real VOD review. And I think it'd be valuable to share this and have you guys watch it as kind of like the last thing that we talk about before we kind of open it up for questions. So I'm going to play this. It should be able to share audio. So again, it's only, I think 3 minutes long.
Here we're red team. We have Senna and Sivir. We have been pressuring them a lot. We're at their tower here, but they're into a Nautilus. So they got a little ahead of themselves. And the comment I made here is that this is disrespectful. You should know better. The Nautilus Q can't hit you if there's a thing in between you, like your minions. So if you stay in this box behind your minions, then he won't be able to hit you. So that's like a little micro thing. And this is the type of mistakes that I'm talking about where like he knew immediately when he made that mistake. So this in a vacuum is like, yeah, I made that mistake. I won't make it next time. Like it was just a lapse in judgment, right? But that's not where it ends, right? So this is 3 minutes, 5 seconds. So let's just watch this through. This is so loud on my side. So he gets taken really low here. He has to flash, but he survives. So that in and of itself is very bad, but he knows why it's bad. He just mispositioned. He did a dumb thing. This is another random comment about that. Then we're back here. Right? He died there because of the mistake he made 20 seconds before. And this is another instance of disrespect. He knows he doesn't have flash. He knows that he's down in health. He now has to change the way that he plays this laning phase out. So he might be tempted to think, once again, results-based analysis, like, oh, I should have just like not gotten hit by it. I should have been better and moved out of the way. But this speaks to the point I made about how like chain reaction of things, the correct thing to have done would have been to not be here. It would have been be 200 units back and farther down the lane so that there is no world where he can Q you. And he wouldn't have even been able to do this and kill you had you not made this earlier mistake, right? And so that's just one small example, and that trend might continue through the rest of the game, right? Maybe he dies here, and then he comes back to lane without flash, and he's down in gold, so he has to play even safer, and then they lose the first dragon, and then it snowballs from there, right? So anytime if there's contention and everyone's looking at like a particular point in the game, this was the deciding moment where we lost the game. You go, well, is it? How did you end up here in the first place? Because chances are there were 5 to 10 smaller mistakes that led to that game state, and you're just looking at it as, oh, I should have just executed better in the moment. And it's like, well, had you made the correct decision 10 times prior to this, you would have already won the game. You wouldn't have even been in this position. So that's the harder trends to see long term, but those are the things that I'm looking for generally.
Awesome. And that's really it as far as a structured presentation. But I think that example from Michael really shows you kind of the value and the intricacies that you can get into in doing a film review. Talking about one positioning issue leading to further, instances down the game that, you're caught out, you don't have the resources you need. So it might be, yes, as a player, I know I'm out of position, but that's going to lead to me dying, 30 seconds from now or 2 minutes from now. And you can start to see that chain of events happen over the course of the game. And it's no different, in whatever title you're playing. You can start to see with those VOD reviews, with the analysis and the stats and things, looking for patterns, looking for play styles that are either working or not. And then being able to say in practice, we're going to sit down and really work on, today positioning behind a minion wave is like the thing that we're going to focus on the most today. And that's going to be a point of emphasis for everybody on the team, regardless of position of what you play. And it kind of gives you an idea of what to build your practices around, what to build your game strategies around for, this weekend's playoff game or whatever you might be prepping for. And again, this is a 10,000 foot view on what you can do with film and analytics and stats. But hopefully this kind of gave you an idea of how to start doing things in your own practices, in your own programs, whether it's a League of Legends game like we kind of focused on today, or if it's Overwatch or Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers, looking at all of the frame data that's out there and watching VOD reviews and matchups is also a super great thing to do. There's a ton of content and resources online, just even if you did a quick YouTube search, to be able to look for game film and footage. Whether it's from another team that you're playing, maybe they have a Twitch channel that you want to watch and review their own game film and yours, or if it's, hey, I want to learn from a professional player and I want to watch what they do and what they talk about and apply that to our own practices and our own strategies. So with that, I'm going to say, are there any questions? Is there anybody that's in the chat here live today that has anything that they want to dive a little deeper in or talk a little bit more on? Otherwise, I could probably get our Lego winners figured out. Okay. I have gotten a list of everybody on the webinar today. So you all have a super good chance at winning the full big Lego set. 1 in 10 chance, actually, which is great. And I have a screenshotted list of everybody on the webinar now, along with a random number generator. So we will go 1 through 10 here. I'm just going to click the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. 1 and 10. And the winner is 3, which would be Brian Lewis, one of the winners of the big Lego set, the big Minecraft Lego set. So we'll get that mailed out to you. The other winner from the first week pulled in was Kent Logston of Red Bull CUSD 132. So congrats to Kent and to Brian for winning the big Minecraft Lego sets. Like I said, we'll get those mailed out sometime later this week. Anybody else have questions or anything we want to talk about here while we've got some time? If not, that was a 45-minute session and we get you guys 15 minutes back in your day. So. Amy Harris says, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for coming, Amy, and everybody for attending. I don't think we have any questions that have come in. So I, again, just want to thank you on behalf of Bytespeed for joining us this morning. Hopefully you're able to use some of the things we talked about this week and last week to better your programs and help out moving forward. So, again, if you have other questions, please feel free to reach out, but have a great rest of your day and your week, and we'll see you very, very soon.